Now we will look at some of the recent work on interpreting conversational strategies. We have discussed gender differences. So we will now look at the gender differences with regard to the interpretation of conversational strategies. More recent works have examined the interpreting of conversational strategies by males and females and highlighted differences. The roles that participants assume influence the topics that may be discussed as well as the interpretation given to the conversational acts. When we are talking about conversational strategies, they are the kind of strategies that speakers use to maintain the conversation. They could be checking or showing understanding, opening or closing of conversation, and not only that, but how they can engage the speakers, they can engage the participants. Empirical research have shown that women and men are different with regard to their individual interpretation of these conversational strategies. One study showed that when women are using a strategy of disclaimer, for example, when she says something like, I quote, "I am not an expert, but..." So when she used something like that, she is perceived as uncertain and not influential. Whereas if a man uses this disclaimer, he is perceived as being polite or very thoughtful. Another study conducted by Carle has also shown that women were more influential when they were using tentative language, and it is another part when they are using a tentative language assertively. Also, when there's an element of aggressiveness in the use of a language, it's been observed that aggression were more when two women are talking and least influential when a woman is speaking with a man. So now let's see some of more findings that are given by these number of researchers in their study, where they have looked at the gender differences in the interpretation of conversational strategies. So we will see now that the recent work has been there to address differences between men and women, and they show different results. So for example, we have Macmillan, Vernon and Merton, who attempted to replicate Fishman's study and found very different results. Fishman's study was the study where we have discussed when they analyzed a conversation of male and female couples and found that women used more questions attention getting. So this study was conducted by Macmillan, Vernon and Merton, and they found different results. There were, according to them, no differences in the use of questions, including tag questions, between men and women in the intimate couples they observed, nor did they observe any difference in the use of minimal responses. So thus they were of the opinion that there was no evidence that women necessarily worked harder in their conversation with men. Now, Simpkins, Bullock and Wildman, they found essentially similar results. One reason that these linguistic differences such as tag questions and minimal responses and so on do not always differentiate women and men is that couples differ in ways that they share power. Pollock, Blumstein and Schwartz studied with examples, and they studied couples in which either power was shared equally or one partner had more power. They found that in couples in which one partner had more power, the more powerful partner interrupted more and less powerful partner used more minimal responses and tag questions. These relationships held regardless of the gender of the partner. Then we have Tannen, who suggests that men and women come to mixed gender conversation with different assumptions and expectations, and that these differences often lead to miscommunication. For instance, when women discuss a problem, men tend to interrupt it as an invitation to help solve the problem, whereas women might respond instead by relating problem of their own. Tannen suggests that women's language is not inferior to, but simply different than men's language. According to Carley, another study, women who use more tentative language when discussing conversational topics are more likely to influence men's opinion. Some of the other studies, they show that males tend to interrupt more and talk more in formal tasks. So as compared to informal talks, in the formal talks, males tend to interrupt more and talk more. Now, of course, many of these aspects of male and female speech behavior are quite salient in our everyday lives. Many popular books and television programs are available on the topic, so it is possible that increased awareness of these conversational patterns may change the patterns themselves. Hence, recent researchers indicate that there appear to be some areas of differences, such as the difference in amount or type of interruptions in men and women, although even this difference has been questioned already recently and will certainly continue to be discussed, as all these studies are not conclusive and lead to further discussions and investigation.